Hello, everyone, and thanks for checking into the Pit Stop. This is our recap for Amazing Race Season 37, Episode 1, Double the Stakes, Double the Eliminations. Cayla, I am so excited to unpack this episode with you and discuss the first ever fork in the road.
Yeah, I have a lot of comments. I have a lot of feelings. First and foremost, I will say this was the best episode 1 of a season that I've watched in a while. But no, this one's gonna be really fun to dive into.
And I know we kind of discussed a few things over text last night, but I'm so excited to be joined for the first time ever on the Pit Stop by two very special guests, two true fans of the show, just like us. Let's not leave them waiting backstage any longer. First and foremost, the queen and the winner of Amazing Race Season 29, Brooke. Hey, Brooke.
God, that's such a nice intro. That's so sweet. Thank you. Hi.
Of course. And then, of course, we have to introduce one half of Team Fun to bring the fun to our recap, Floyd. Hey, Floyd.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. So excited to have the both of you. Before we talk about this episode, what have you been up to since the race? We'll start with you, Floyd.
Oh my gosh, I should have prepared answers to this. Life, I work at a foundation downtown in Denver. I'm still in Colorado, loving life, going on a trip to Japan in a couple of weeks, so I'll spend some time there.
Fun.
Which is dope, but I don't know, just living life, it's been good.
Well, it's good to see you, and it's nice to officially meet. Before we went live, we were both like, "This is our first time actually interacting like this," so it's great to meet you. Brooke, what's new with you?
I didn't prepare either. I should not. For Floyd, I'm so happy to see. Sorry, Floyd and I go back so many years now. Just one of the best people on the planet. So nice to see you, and nice to meet you, Cayla. This is the first time we're actually meeting.
I know, it's crazy.
But I do a whole bunch of Amazing Race stuff. We get to do the Pit Stop with Bryce, the Purple Pants podcast every week, which is so fun. And if we're talking trips, I think I'm going to be going to Ireland in a few weeks, and then London and Paris later in the year. So there's some traveling in preparation for which will hopefully be an all-winter season at some point in the very near future. James, everybody, and make it happen. Thank you.
Brooke, we might have to sidebar after this live to talk about Ireland, because I might be going to Ireland too. This is a last minute thing. So we'll have to discuss that later. But so excited to have you both here to join us to recap the premiere. As we know, The Amazing Race is back, and they've been hyping it up as a season of surprises. They're bringing back some of the race's most iconic game pieces. They did flashes of the Express Pass, a fast forward, and Phil promises that every leg will have something amazing happening. What were your overall thoughts on the premiere? Cayla, I know you said it's one of the best premieres we've seen in a while. But what about y'all, Floyd and Brooke?
I thought it was phenomenal. This cast to me is really strong. It reminds me kind of of an old, I've heard some people say this and I agree. It's kind of an old school Amazing Race cast. And I'm looking forward to seeing how these personalities expand and blow up and have I'm just really excited to see how they interact. So that's pretty cool. And then I thought Hong Kong was beautiful. I'm not going to get too much into it. I know we're going to talk about it, but I love some of the travel elements. I loved how it felt just a really quality leg, but we can talk about the details here in a second. But overall, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Great. What did you think, Brooke?
No offense to the most recent seasons, because I do love every season of Amazing Race, but this one in particular felt very fresh, very new, but also very nostalgic to me. So I think they're going to do great things this season. I was a little worried when it was some gimmick from from other seasons is going to show up in every episode, but so far I've liked it, and I think that it's actually going to turn out to be pretty cool. So I'm really excited for the season.
I could not agree more. I think it'll definitely make the season exciting and also unpredictable, because I feel that's kind of been a common complaint among fans in the last couple of years, that the placements never really change up a lot. And that's what made this premiere exciting for me, is you think Jonathan and Anna are going to clean sweep, and then everyone gets bunched up on the ferry. So it felt very old school Amazing Race in that sense for me.
And they come in second and
which we'll definitely discuss. Cayla, any other thoughts about the premiere overall?
Yeah, no, just to piggyback off of the unpredictability of like where the teams fall throughout the leg. I'm happy to see that again. That was not just a complaint from fans. Like as a former racer, like the past couple seasons have just been so predictable. So I'm already getting like off the bat like unpredictable season. Aside from that, like I have my comments about the fork in the road, which we'll dive into that. But I just feel like the type of people that they cast for these teams, like they're giving. Like from episode 1, like they're giving. It's not all like cookie cutter. Oh, like it's like there are personalities that are being shown right out the gate. And it's just shaping up to be a juicy season. Like not just a good season, but like a juicy season from like being over here on the couch. So
episode 1, like the fact that they could do that for us for episode 1, and I feel like it's only going to get better. It's just a testament to casting. They did a really good job this time.
Really good job.
And another Amazing Race first. Obviously, this is the biggest cast we've ever seen in Amazing Race history. 14 teams, all starting off at the starting line, the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles. I don't know about you all, but I feel like whenever I see a premiere, this is one of my favorite moments. And it just brings me back to our season being at the starting line, hearing Phil say those words. It gives me the chills. I don't know if it brings you guys back, but I love the starting line specifically.
Oh, for sure. I'm like low key salty about the starting line because like I didn't really get that. Like we got that race from a phone. So we did not line up technically until our second time going back after COVID. So like this was like a truly iconic, like amazing race start, where everyone's rushing to get on the flights are back, which I, as like a diehard fan of Amazing Race, I'm like, thank God it's back, because everyone's rushing to get the first flight so they don't make the second flight. And, it's like we've missed that for the past couple seasons, truly.
Yeah, I think, again, that's why it feels like old school Amazing Race, because they're given like that clue to tell them, hey, you're going to Hong Kong, but there's only 2 flights available and there's only a limited amount on the first flight. So I love the scramble getting to LAX. I mean, Floyd and Brooke, you guys had a starting line in LA as well. So did this bring back memories for y'all?
The starting line is the best moment. I mean, every season I watch it and I like float up out of my body. And when we were there, I remember I feel like I was watching Phil, having him say, the world is waiting. That's the best moment. Every season I watch it and I get the chills and I like tear up. And I mean, other people are like, what's your favorite moment of the season? Like other than the winning moment, like that first moment where it's like, it's about to start. There's so much potential. Like you never know what's going to happen next. It's the best. I remember Floyd and I were like right near each other when we were starting. And so I remember looking at Becca, I looked at Floyd, Scott and I were like vibrating with like anxiety. And then it was like, get in a cab and bust out.
Yeah. This is kind of embarrassing, but whenever I go on YouTube and watch like recaps of myself on The Amazing Race, the clips that I repeat the most times are the starting line moments. One, just because it's like so fun to be there and it's so exciting. And I remember being at my premiere parties and seeing everyone like being like, oh my God, Floyd's in The Amazing Race. So every time I see those starting lines, I'm filled with a combination of like so much nostalgia and excitement, but also honestly a lot of stress. Because both times I was so
right.
And that I like was shaking in my boots both times and just like laughing through it. But like, it actually fills me with a little bit of anxiety in a positive way. Yeah. But I'm like, dang, they must be so scared. I know they're excited, but I also know they're scared. So, yeah.
I can't remember. Did y'all's season have like split flights like they did, or was it all of you together?
We had 2 flights on the first leg of the race. Yeah.
And then my second season, I think we were all on just 1 flight. We for sure were. Yeah.
Okay. Well, they all get to LAX, and we find out the first flight will be consisting of Jonathan and Anna, Melinda and Erica, Carson and Jack, and Courtney and Jasmine. And then the look of disappointment with Han and Holden specifically being told that the flight was sold out, and they're going to be on flight number 2 with Ernest and Bridget, Brett and Mark, Nick and Mike, Scott and Lori, Bernie and Kerrigan, Alyssa and Josiah, Mark and Larry, and then, of course, Pops and Jeff, and Lauren and Jackie. I like that there was not a lot of teams on the first flight because it kind of gives like those 4 teams a little bit of a buffer. But how shitty when they landed and I saw that they were 18 minutes late. It's like any lead that they could have had went out the window. And then flight 2, when they land, it says, oh, we're 11 minutes early. So it's like it didn't really matter, but gosh, if I was landing and I was told, hey, we're 18 minutes late, I would feel the pressure of like the other teams just being moments behind.
Yeah.
Facts.
Even though it didn't ultimately matter in terms of them bunching up in the placement, I think things like that, when they temporarily separate you only for you to come back together, it's like messing with the emotions. So like in the front group, it's messing with their emotions in the sense that they're like all of a sudden more depressed than they would have been before. And then the behind group is like giving them an extra energy. So like sometimes I wonder if that's planned. You know what I mean? Like we know you're gonna bunch up.
Sure planned, Floyd. It's called emotional abuse. It was for sure planned. It's like I almost feel like it's the opposite. Like it's giving a false sense of security for like the first flight teams, and then the second flight teams, I feel like it creates like paranoia and panic. And it's like, can you overcome the paranoia and panic of knowing you're behind? Like,
I'll take the false sense of security any day. Give me that false sense of security. I want to sit on that 14-hour flight knowing that I'm 6 seconds ahead. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's just such a nice, I could imagine being on that flight and being like, even if I'm only 30 minutes behind, that 14 hours would just be like miserable. Just trying to figure out how am I going to climb out of 30 minutes.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't imagine how Jonathan would have felt if he ended up on that second flight. Just on what we saw. Can you imagine?
Send help. Send help, Jonathan.
Think twice if you're in danger.
Well, as teams land in Hong Kong, they have to make their way to Tian Tan Buddha to find their next clue. And Phil, of course, gives us some little facts about it being home to more than 5.7 million people. It's also known as the Neon City. I mean, I thought when I saw this clip initially that they were going to have to run to the top of the stairs. And so I'm not going to lie, I was a little disappointed. It was like only like what, a quarter of the way up, maybe halfway. I was like, I want this shit to be hard. Like go all the way to the top.
Listen, they were looking out for Jackie and Lauren in that moment because for my God.
Fair. But I also get maybe from like camera angles and stuff, you want the Buddha behind you. So you can go all the way to the top.
For sure. But also they could have totally gone all the way to the top. Okay. Come on. Oh my God.
But I will say this was one of my favorite moments, and I'll play the clip with audio in a second, was Jackie and Lauren specifically. I mean, we learn a little bit about Jackie having a fear of stairs, and she kind of gives a little bit of a backstory as to why, but just the support of Lauren in that moment, I thought was a very beautiful and just like inspiring moment to see on the episode. So I'll play that really quick.
You're absolutely doing it. And it may not be stairs, but it might be something else for someone else. And you're going to help them overcome that fear just by doing it. Okay. Last set. One more together. You got it. Beautiful. Woo! All right. We did it.
I loved what she said. Like, it may not be stairs, but you're showing that you can overcome this, and it could be for anyone who's watching. So I loved that. I definitely got teary-eyed. I mean, they made me cry a lot this episode, to be fair.
Yeah, I kept the tissues close for sure.
I mean, spoiler alert, I don't know if you care if we go sequentially or not, but I was rooting for them so hard. And
I know.
It's like on the heartstrings all season long and just there to have a good time. So that was tough.
I need to take a lesson from them because honestly, they, again, were like never toward the front. Like they were always a step behind, like not on this ferry, not in the, like just far. And maybe they edited it out. Maybe they were like horribly miserable and it just didn't get shown, but I can't imagine that's the case. They were just so positive the whole time. Like that would be so easy to just be down on yourself. You're the last one. There's nobody here. And yet they were just, this is my experience. I'm loving this. And just, I love them. I need to have more of them in my life on a regular basis.
Agree.
Yeah. I feel like they're the epitome of like a team just trying to make the most of the moment of the experience. Like I said, it's just what I meant when I said all these teams are so different. And you got to see like a little piece of everyone's personality, and like Jackie and Lauren, like from the gate, are just like beautiful humans and had such a memorable moment. You know, granted their time is going to be short, but I mean, it was pretty impactful just from that stair scene. But also, I'm literally watching this like she's afraid of stairs, and they make her do stairs literally day one. Like, oh, poor thing.
But I say, I don't know if she did this, but I was always afraid to put what I was afraid of on the application, because I was like,
yeah, you lie.
I put what I'm afraid of, they're going to make me do something of that nature. So I always tried to avoid ever admitting I was afraid of heights until I had to do something heights related.
I made the mistake of, watching me, you'd think I have 400,000 fears, but I really only have one legitimate fear, and it's spiders. And I made the mistake of putting it on the application, and then Cassie would send me messages being like, watch out, it's a spider season. You're going to, and actually I did get a message from Cassie at one point saying, don't worry, it's not like they've ever had to eat a spider or anything. And then a couple of seasons later, they legitimately had to eat a spider. And Floyd, the season after ours, I remember my dad texted me being like, you'd be out. And I was like, out of what? Because I was watching it a little bit late. And it was the one where one person had the tarantulas on them while the other one was doing an eating challenge. And there were, I think that would have been for me. I think,
Yeah,
I don't
thank you.
I think you would have been able to do it. Yeah, I'm seeing you and seeing how you push through. I think you would have found the courage.
I couldn't have done the eating. That's for real sure, because this is live and I won't curse, but that's legitimate. I never ever, give me whatever penalty you got, I'm not eating that. 0. But maybe if I just go somewhere else and just don't think about it, but I don't think so.
On Will's application, he put, I'm afraid of not having leg room on a plane. Like,
Fair.
One of the guys on our season put I'm afraid of being sucked out of the bathroom toilet. That's my
Yeah. Afraid of Phil. Oh my god.
That's funny.
Well, after they climb these stairs to the Buddha, they are instructed on their route info to go to Chung Chau Island, where they'll have to catch a ferry to find their next clue. Jonathan and Anna, like right out of the gate, this is when I was like, oh, they're going to clean sweep this leg. It was so smart of them in the taxi to even ask their driver, hey, can we use your phone? And they immediately did research to look at when the ferry times were going to be departing. And they barely made it, but for somehow they did. And it makes me wonder if Carson and Jack's taxi didn't go a different direction. I wonder if they would have been able to get on that same ferry. But I loved how forward thinking Jonathan and Anna were.
Yeah.
They have watched and they have learned and they were smart. And then again, he celebrated like he won the lottery by getting on that ferry. It was great. I mean, I'm all for his enthusiasm. I just worry what's going to happen when they don't
go their way.
Right.
Yeah.
Long race. Very, very long race. That's one of the things that worry me about them, is that like they're celebrating the successes, but it's leg one. And I know it's not leg one energy. Like you're paranoid in leg one, actually knowing if you're actually gonna be good at this thing. So when you have a success early on, like that's really reassuring, but it's a long race. You know what I mean? And like these countries, these environments are going to change up every single day. So I'm curious, like you said, Brooke, I'm curious to see how they're going to navigate that. The
interesting thing is on this leg one, like Floyd, on ours, nobody really saw anybody because we were all self-driving.
Yeah.
And we were so far apart. This one, at least you could see where everybody else is.
True.
So I wonder how they would have been if they didn't know that the people had just were just right behind them and had just caught up. And if they would have, I don't know. Because on your guys' season, well, Cayla, if you probably could see everybody because you were all in the same flight all the time. But did you guys have a leg like that where you didn't know where anybody else was really for most of it until the end?
I will say most of our legs, because every single leg of ours was self-drive. So every single leg, you had to get your own directions. So I will truly, the majority of our season, we did not know where a lot of people were. We ran or drove around with Kim and Pin. So it's like we constantly saw or had Kim and Pin in our eyesight. But aside from them, no, it was like you never knew where anyone was unless you were physically following them.
It must have been so your season. I mean, self-drives in general are tougher in general, but your season must have been like on another level of emotional like craziness and just like because like most of the time I feel like we kind of knew where each other was in both of our seasons. But you like that's
like there's literally a moment where Raquel and I we were in we're going towards Italy and in Switzerland, and there's a highway and then there's a service road, and over there the service road is technically like the interstate, like the one where you go fast, where I thought the service road would have like a bunch of slower traffic and a bunch of exits and stuff. It was wrong. It was opposite. But we're like literally trucking along, haven't made a single wrong turn. We constantly stop. We're like, all right, we're still going the right way, right? And everyone's like, yeah. So I'm literally like leg up driving, one arm. I'm like, oh, we're in first. Like the whole day, I thought for sure there's no way that we're not in first. We show up to bungee jump, and we're in 5th place, like second to last or something. And I'm like, how? Like literally how? And that's when I realized if you don't see anyone, that's a problem. And that was literally our experience every next day.
Yeah, no, thank you. On our season, we were practically always together. So we always knew where we were in the placements. Like one leg, we knew we were first and there was no excitement. People were like, why are you not excited you were in first? I'm like, well, that kind of suspense was already taken from us because we just knew we were in first. But not being able to see other teams would be a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Once teams get to Chungchow Island, they are instructed to do their roadblock, who's ready for some ups and downs. And I loved hearing the little bit of a history about this tower and how participants practice in Hong Kong's annual bun scrambling competition. They have to climb up and down to grab as many buns as they can while on the clock. But instead of grabbing buns in this roadblock, teams had to climb to the top in order to receive their next clue. There would only be 8 lines available, first come, first served. You know, I was a little disappointed they didn't have to grab some buns personally, because that just would have been really entertaining. But at the same time, with the rain, nobody wants a wet bun. So I understand maybe why they didn't put the buns on the top.
I kind of feel like a wet bun is better than no bun. Like I like carbs. Carbs are my friend. I don't know. Sorry.
What did y'all think about the roadblock?
Oh my god, I'm dying.
What
was the question?
Yeah, sorry, I missed it too.
I was saying,
cut out. I'm thinking of soggy wet buns.
What were your thoughts on this roadblock?
Oh man,
it's a good first like modest roadblock. I think compared to some other climbing challenges, it seemed to rely on a lot more upper body strength based on how the way you had to like grab onto those poles, and then there was like, who was it? Was it Brett? I think who was the one who just like did it, and we're like, wow, that's
Spider Monkey, unbelievable.
Yeah, and so it was one of those things where you didn't need to have the upper body strength to do well on it, but that felt like a little more difficult than like your average climbing challenge, but still like a good, nothing too crazy, a good introductory challenge, kind of teases the height fear a little bit. Right. It didn't really cause any shakeups or anything, and then again we got a really emotional story with Jackie and Lauren, which was, I actually thought it was so, I forgot which one it was, but when she was like crying on the way down, like I was crying with her, like laughing with her too. Yeah.
Oh, I know, when she was being like lowered to the ground, I was like, Queen, you just enjoy this moment.
Yes.
She even said like this was her amazing race moment. Look at her. I was obsessed. And just seeing how supportive Jackie was in this moment for Lauren, and then look at all the locals and everyone who's standing around just cheering and rooting her on. It was just, again, they're delivering such beautiful moments in the premiere for us as viewers.
Yeah.
We just talk about the fact that in the amount of time that Floyd was saying when he thought of this roadblock, you showed the entirety of Brett climbing up the thing. Like he went that quickly that it was like 20 seconds. I don't even think it was edited. It was ridiculous.
It was, yeah. And I did enjoy that the teams were bunched up at this particular roadblock. Because when Jonathan and Anna did it, it was like, okay, great. It was pretty straightforward. But then seeing everyone kind of scramble their way up the tower, it just made more for like exciting television.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then we have to shout out Pops and his massive bicep that was popping out. Like when he was just using his arms, I was like, oh my God.
He wasn't even using his legs. Can I give Jonathan actually credit for a hot second? Because I feel like we're messing around with him a little bit. I will say, when Anna was doing it and he's like, how are you feeling? She's like, I'm so, first of all, she is me. I am her. Like, she was just like, dying. And he was like, you're tired already? But like, credit to him that he was smart enough to not say that loud enough for her to hear, but loud enough for her to hear. He was just super supportive. So I give a lot of credit that he was very supportive, because I can imagine him on the sidelines being like, I should have done it. I should have done it. Might be faster, whatever. But good knowing what your wife needed to hear and what she did not need to hear. So credit to you.
And, you know, they breezed through this roadblock. They seem to have some kind of a lead over the other teams, and they show up to the ferry terminal. And once again, just that forward thinking and being proactive. I was just really impressed that Anna's like, let's go do research. Let's just go figure out what we're doing, where we're going. And I just thought that, again, that's smart racing. And we didn't see any other teams kind of taking that initiative, but I just thought this was, again, a great example of smart racing. So props to them. Well, this is the topic of conversation that I was looking forward to having with all of you. This is when we hear about the fork in the road. And of course, Phil's hyping it up. Like, this is the first ever fork in the road on The Amazing Race, where there will be 2 parallel races of 7 teams at once, racing to 2 different pit stops. And once you get to this board, you have to kind of choose which side of the fork in the road you're going to take. And once all those spots fill up, then you're kind of forced to do the other side of the fork. I know when Cayla and I did kind of like our pre-season assessment, we were definitely excited about this fork in the road twist. I think in itself, it's great in theory. Like, I was excited to kind of see how it would ultimately play out. But I will say, I don't personally think it was executed in the right way, because again, us as viewers, but also having done the race and having seen some criticisms on social media from other fans, it just felt like almost a revamped or an elevated detour to some extent, but you're just kind of forced to stick to the decision you make without being able to switch. What are your thoughts, you guys, on this fork in the road?
I think for me, or Cayla, you want to go first? Or
No, you go, because I'm about to like rip it to shreds. So.
Okay, I'll start, and then I'll let you. For me, I think it was like an issue of like marketing or advertising, if that kind of makes sense. So like, I think for what it was, I think like to do a double elimination essentially is what it was. I think it like was cool. You know what I mean? Like, I think what it did was good. I thought it was cool that you had to like choose which route you wanted to go. I think it was fair in my opinion. So that's cool. But like, I was expecting a fork in the road to be like, just when you said 2 parallel races, literally like an entire leg that's like parallel, roadblocks, detours, etc. I mean, even different cities and stuff. So my expectations for what this was going to be was different. I almost would have been fine if they were just like, there's going to be a surprise double elimination or some surprise twist, and then like they surprise the teams with like, you have to choose a route. Like for me, it was like the framing of it was my issue. But like I think like in terms of what it is, I thought it was good, and I think it was a cool way to do a double elimination if you had to do a double elimination. But I don't know if I'd call it a fork in the road. You know, I'd call it something else.
I saw someone on Reddit call it the D to the D in the tour. That's literally what it was. Cayla, what were you going to say?
No, like Floyd literally said it perfectly. I think it was maybe like the false, like what I thought it was going to be didn't like play up to that. When I think of a fork in the road, like you literally have to go one way or the other. So I get that they had to go one way or the other to do each task, but like, that's essentially a detour. That's what you have to do when you pick a detour. Right. And I, in my mind, thought that you would end on the mat at 2 different locations. Like if you take one direction or the other, you're going in an opposite direction.
Right.
So yeah, I thought that there would be totally a full new route depending on which way you went, but it was really just a task you did and then you both ended up at the mat regardless. Like to me, that's not a true fork in the road in my opinion. It was just a glorified detour, and like that was like it was a big letdown, I thought, on my end. I was really excited for it, but like you said, it was just like a cool way to eliminate 2 people. I like the strategy of only 6 and 6 could 6 and 6, 7 and 7, 7 and 7 could go. So then you have to kind of pick which one you're going to do, which I do feel like that played into why some people picked Sing, because there was less people there. Smart. You're getting there earlier, you know, so it's like, there were positive elements to it that I still liked, but overall, I really wanted to see them truly have to take 2 separate routes to 2 different mats. Fair. Like, I get Phil can't be in 2 places at once, but the way that they made it sound, it just made it sound like they were going to end up in 2 different places. And then to see them maybe have to navigate back to leg 2 to meet up would be cool. I don't know. Again, I get Phil can't be in 2 places. So the more I thought about it, I can't really rip it to shreds completely because, you know, it's like, yeah, how is he going to be in 2 separate locations for a mat? But it was just underwhelming. That's really the word. It was just underwhelming. Like, you know, okay, cool. I will say what they had to do was freaking hard. I was texting James about it. Those are like my literal nightmares of tasks, to dance and sing. Like, I hate both of those things. And the singing, you still had to have movements. So I'm like, I would have hoped to God pick the dancing. I don't know. It was tough. I will say they looked tough. I don't know.
All right.
I loved it.
Okay.
No, I didn't. I get what you're saying. I will say I didn't see a fork in the road as having to go 2 different ways and stay 2 different ways. Like I just sort of saw a fork can come back together. And I personally, my only gripe with it, first of all, side note, singing and dancing are my dream tasks. So it's amazing to me that like different casts feel different ways. Like we got to sing once, we didn't get to dance at all. Like the musical theater major in me was like, give me singing and dancing every damn day. Cayla's like, I'll make a ladle and carry mannequins. I'll do that one.
I will climb 5,000 stairs and carry a bunch of random like acorns or something. And like, I'm literally like singing and dancing is my actual nightmare. Like memorizing choreography, actual nightmare.
I'm like, give me the choreography all day long. And I will sing in whatever language. I did that in college and multiple, like give it to me. That's the task. That's the Brett climbing the bun thing for Brooke. Like I'm into that. But I'm sorry, I digress. My actual gripe with it is I wish it wasn't 7 and 7. I wish like 14 people could have done one, because when you get to a fork in the road, it doesn't close. Like, and if you're not good at the singing, maybe if there's 11 people on one side, you're thinking, well, now I only have to, you know, I'm first here. Like, or if I'm the only one, I'm going to win my leg. And maybe the 2 slowest on the other side go home. I don't know. I just wish it wasn't necessarily mandated that it was 7 and 7. Yeah. But and had there not been 2 mats, it really would have just been a detour you couldn't switch. And I think there has been in the past a detour you couldn't switch. I think it's a rarity, but I sort of remember it happening once.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it. I'm trying to remember if that happened on my season, because I was like, that's
explicitly like once you choose a detour,
you cannot switch. I feel like that's happened. So I liked the 2 mats. I thought it was pretty cool. I will say one was leaps and bounds harder. The dragon one was easy. Like that just seemed real straightforward and simple. Yeah. The singing one, or the singing and movement one, like let's make it like, I don't know. Maybe the dragon one was much longer than they showed us on TV, but it seemed like these were the least even detours. And the part that I think that's actually going to bug me is the start of the next leg, because all the poor people who did the sing one are going to start so much later than the people who, now I get it. You chose your detour. It is what it is. That's the order you should start in. But I just feel like if you're going to do the fork in the road, they should at least be somewhat comparable, because these did not seem that.
Well, I didn't even think about it like that. Like if the first, it should be like first, second, third, fourth, opposed to like I guess in the way that they're being released, I mean, like if you showed up first in sing and the first team in dance get released together, second in dance, second in sing, they get released together. I didn't even think about the release for the next leg.
Well,
I know, but the more I think about it, maybe I'm not mad about it.
I think they'll all be bunched together on the next flight. Like,
do not bunch people together. I will die on this hill. Be released in the order you showed up in. It is like, why?
No, I agree with you, and that I'm saying, like, I think it'll end up being an equalizer where they're all going to be on the same.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Like,
I yelled at you then. That's not what I meant.
I'm with you, Brooke. I'm with you, Brooke.
But going back to what you were saying, Brooke, about how like you wish it wouldn't have been 7-7. I think Cayla, you might have said this to me last night, but what I do like about it is that sometimes on seasons, like a detour, all the teams will do one side. So as a viewer, you never get to see the other side. So it's kind of a waste. So what I like is that we're forced to see both sides. And I like fork in the road, and it's something I actually would like to see return on a future season. I think it needs to be fine-tuned, and I think to actually play into the fork in the road, play on words with that, and how Phil was saying it's 2 parallel races. I didn't feel like it gave 2 parallel races, and that's why I think yes, something afterwards, or have it at the beginning of the leg. Have the first thing they do be the fork in the road. So now they're actually doing 2 races throughout Hong Kong. And sure, if the pit stops are in the same space, I get that logistically. But I want to see them actually do 2 separate routes in Hong Kong doing multiple different tasks. And maybe they do the same roadblock, but after that roadblock, it's back to being 2 different, different route info, route marker points to go to.
Yes.
Or even, what would be interesting is if I would have been fine with it just being the detour and like 2 route infos or something and then the mat. But like, they don't even have to be different locations. It could be like the east entrance and the west entrance, and you have to go to the right entrance of a building or the whatever. So production doesn't have to actually create 2 full races, but you have to go to your correct entrance of something, or the north or the south lawn of wherever. And then if you're at the wrong one, you can't get that clue because that's not your race.
It's interesting. I'll also say, I feel like for this to kind of be what we're envisioning or wanting the fork in the road to be, it can't be like an early in the race mechanic. It feels like that has to be the kind of thing where you have like 8 teams left or like 6 teams left, simply because if you're doing 2 parallel races from like a viewer experience and like an editing experience, it'd be way too much to have like 7 teams on each leg in different locations at the same time. So I feel like if they do bring it back for a future season, which I think they should, it needs to be like a final 8, final 6 kind of deal. So we can kind of, just so we don't get confused.
I like that. And then maybe nix the double elimination, because you almost don't need it if you're going to check in at the same. Yeah. So do it halfway through the season with less teams, so we actually see these 2 parallel races happening at once. I like that. Hey, so if Bertram, Elise, Phil, anyone from production is watching this, like, take these notes, because we're not hating it per se. It just needs some work. It just needs to be workshopped.
Exactly. It just needs to be fine-tuned. But I'm like, they're not going to listen to peasant old us. But
if they're listening, I think it's perfection. Don't change a thing. I love that.
But Scott chimes in and says, like, I will say choosing 6 on the harder side was a no-brainer versus choosing to be last. So it's like, I do like that they're like acknowledging that, and that like strategy kind of comes in. So yeah, it's just, again, we all have opinions on it, but we're not the ones that created it. I liked it. It had such good potential.
Right. And I liked the thought process of like, even Alyssa and Josiah, like I think 2 or 3 teams had already been up on the dance side, and they were like, we wanted to do dance, but we would rather put ourselves first on this fork in the road, so we actually have more time and aren't like racing at the bottom. And the same thing with Jonathan and Anna. She's like, I would love to do dance, but it just made sense to go to the side that there weren't a lot of teams on, because essentially whatever side you pick, those are the teams you're racing against to the pit stop. So yeah, just a little bit of fine tuning. I like what Reed said. Put a fork in it. It's done.
Wait, but can I just say one other thing about it before we put a fork in it? Because my favorite moment of the episode happened here. My favorite moment was the Courtney and Jasmine who get to the fork in the road.
Yes.
And they're basically like, all right, so there's 2 old white guys and 2 other guys we think have no rhythm. We're going to do this side, even though there's more people on it. And good on them, because it worked for them. So know your strengths, play to your strengths, And I loved that moment. It was just so shady and fantastic.
Okay,
Loved it.
last little topic from Reed in the chat about Fork in the Road. Have the first person who gets to the board assign everyone aside. What do you think about that?
Love it.
0. You can't do that. What do you mean love it, Cayla?
It would be so dramatic, but also you're gonna be on everybody's bad side.
Yeah.
That's gonna be like, maybe it's like a U-turn where you just piss one team off. Oh well. This is like the ultimate, like, you kind of screw everybody over, and then in the future you're screwed.
Okay, but this early in the season, you could totally play dumb. Like, you don't know these teams yet. You could be like, oh, sorry, like, I genuinely thought I picked people's strong suits.
Valid.
Like,
okay, valid.
Yeah.
So early. Now do that later on in the race, like Floyd said. Now we have some drama.
That's when you should do it.
Definitely on board to do that.
Yeah, I agree. That would be savage. And it would make for good TV.
Yeah.
Officially, I'm against this idea. Like, yeah.
Well, I know we kind of touched on them a little bit, but for the 2 tasks, it was either dance or sing. And for dance, they had to learn a routine. And I would agree with you, Brooke. This seemed more of the easier side. As Phil said, it takes 2 to lion dance, 1 to lift the head and interact with the crowd, and the other one has to be the tail, sometimes to lift their partner. And so the teams had to bring the lion to life by learning a choreographed routine. And then once the judge says they're in sync, they'll receive their next clue to the pit stop. And then in sing, which was by far harder, I feel like the judge was such a harsh critic. They had to get made over and then learn how to perform and sing lines from a Cantonese opera. Proper moves and enunciation could be overwhelming, but if they can act the part, and I did hear Phil kind of emphasize that, act the part, they'll be rewarded with the clue to head to the pit stop. With sing in particular, like, and I picked up on this when Will and I had a performance-based challenge. We had to do like a German song and dance in chicken outfits. And we were so hell-bent on like the pronunciation of German. We were like, oh shoot, like we screwed ourselves by taking, like, why did we do this? Like, German is such a hard language. We're never going to get this down. And then when we went to go perform it, they had cue cards of the lyrics in front of us. So we're like, oh, we don't have to memorize this. It really is acting the part. So I really think when Phil said that, I was like, that's really, at the end of the day, you just need to be in the moment, really present it. And I know Bertram loves the theatrics of it all. So I do think that was probably what was really ultimately being judged. What do you guys think?
Yeah, but sorry, Floyd, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just from like a pure time like perspective, like one side you threw on some pants and you got to start practicing. The other side, you had to get made up and then put on wardrobe and then learn the words and then go perform. It's just, there were too many steps on that side to even make it even remotely equitable. So like, I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I like the Fork in the Road more than I thought I did, because honestly, if this had just been a regular detour, I would have been livid, because it's so unbalanced. So you can't compare the people who were doing the sing side to the people who were doing the dance side, because all of the 4 of the dance people crossed the finish line before any sing person did. Right. And that's people who showed up after Josiah and
Alyssa.
Thank you. Love them. Big fans. I really am, actually. I'm sorry. I just forgot. And those are people who showed up after they did to the board. And so it was just too much for me. Like too many steps.
I get what you're saying about the timing, that from a time perspective and how you have to prepare for the sing one, that makes sense. I feel like, though, my initial impression was that they felt even to me, but maybe I'm just like, maybe that's because I personally would have chosen dance just because it looks so fun. And so maybe I'm saying they're even because I want to make it sound like I chose a hard task. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I feel like, to like what you were saying, James, if it's really about the theatrics and it didn't look like they had that many words to memorize, and we don't know if they had cue cards or not. Someone can verify that. But like, I don't know. It didn't, if you're someone who's not a dancer, I could see, because it's not like the moves you had to do and sing, from what I could tell, were that crazy difficult. Like, yes, you had to coordinate it to what you're singing and everything. But like, and again, the lion dance wasn't that crazy of a dance in the grand scheme of dances on The Amazing Race. But I don't know. I kind of disagree. I think they felt balanced to me, with the exception of maybe the makeup and all the other stuff that might have gone into the other one. And it did seem like that one judge was pretty strict, but it could have just been that all the people who got to the dance side of the fork in the road were like some of the first teams to choose it. And so I'm assuming these are teams who are like, we know we can kill this. And so maybe they just made it look easy. You know what I mean?
Forget it. I'm convinced. I agree with you.
But I don't know. I don't know. That's just my opinion. You don't have to agree. I'm just saying, I feel like they were decently balanced in my eyes.
I think it's the makeup that caused it.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to both. Like, I do think that some of the teams that chose dance were just truly, honestly, probably more so ahead of the pack to begin with. But also, like Brooke said, I didn't even think about it like that, in the mindset of, yeah, you have to get hair and makeup done and go get dressed. That is literal, actual important time.
Right.
That, so I guess I didn't even think about that. It was one of my favorite moments, though. One, because I was like internally dying, because I was like, I would hate to have to do either one of these. But it was so funny. Scott and what's his wife's name? Lori.
Yes.
Oh my God, I was dying. How the judge commented on she was walking too aggressively or whatever. Like, she had to walk more dainty. I literally about fell out of my couch because he was like, Lori's not dainty. That's anything but what I was dying, because I feel like that would have been me. I'm like, you're really gonna compliment or comment on how I'm walking, but I'm supposed to be singing here. Like, that one just looked so hard.
Well, my favorite moment on the dance side, and I clipped this clip. It's only 3 seconds. Was this moment?
Yeah, we're good.
Well, good for you guys.
They're good. I thought that was so funny. I was like, yeah, they're gonna nail this, no questions about it. But hopefully we'll see Fork in the Road in the future. And I really appreciated our healthy debate and conversation about that first ever twist on The Amazing Race. After teams complete their side of the fork in the road, they get their clue instructing them to go to the pit stop, which is at Hong Kong's new city park, which they're considered a serene oasis called West Kowloon Cultural District Art Park Terrace. In first place for the dance side was Carson and Jack, who won $3,000. And then coming in second was Brett and Mark, followed by Ernest and Bridget, and then in fourth, Bernie and Kerrigan. And now I'll get to this in a second. Okay. Then after that, we have our first pit stop of the sing side, Alyssa and Josiah, and then back to the dance side, Nick and Mike and Courtney and Jasmine and Mark and Larry, who unfortunately were the last to arrive. Then Jonathan and Anna, then Scott and Lori, then Pops and Jeff, then Han and Holden, Melinda and Erica, and then sadly, Jackie and Lauren. I do like that they kind of edited this, what would have been like a true form. Like, if this had been like a regular formatted leg, like this is what the placements would have probably been. So I do kind of maybe understand Jonathan's disappointment a little more, because sure, he got second in theory, but in the grand picture of it, it's really like eighth. And
but he didn't know that.
No, totally. I just think that in his mind, like, it wasn't good enough, because they had such a clean, like, they were doing so well. They started off really, really strong. And then
I want to say I like them. I actually really like them. I like their dynamic. I like how they came back together over The Amazing Race. So like, anything I'm saying is just sort of joking around and in love. But I think Ricky and Sacer are here. So unless you're Ricky and Sacer, you're never going to be first in every leg of the race. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, so if you're this disappointed with second, imagine if he realized he was like seventh. Right. I think that we would have to brace. Like, I don't know how he's going to act if he ever ends up seven. Like, second is good, dude. Like, second is real good. Also, you don't want to be first in the first leg. That's a second you don't want on your back. So second is good. Relax.
And that's the thing with The Amazing Race too, is like, it's like, I don't know what the percentages are, but like, it's like 70% skill and like 30% luck maybe. Like, I think the teams who really go far are skilled, are truly skilled. So I'm not taking away from, because you all made the final leg, and like you are skilled, you're legitimately skilled. But along the way, to assume you're going to get first every single, like you just aren't in control of that. Like you're not in control of your taxis, you're not in control of your flights, you're not in control of you're just not in control. So it's like it's really it's just an unrealistic expectation. It happens to teams, as we've seen, but if
like
that's
Justin
what you're going
Diana,
into,
Justin and Diana, like they wanted to win and break records. But you make a valid point. At the end of the day, even when Will and I went into the race, it was like we just don't want to be last. Like, sure, a prize and getting first would be great, but as long as I'm still in the race, I don't give a shit what place it is.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, I just want a race to get to the top 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel for Mark and Larry though, because again, if this was just a regular structured leg, they got eliminated when in reality they were 8th out of 14 teams. And that's one of the heartbreaks of this fork in the road twist, because they would have still been in it.
Yep.
Well, yes, however, and I'm not trying to be contrary, but my guess would be that if it was a regular detour and you didn't have to go 7 and 7, that almost nobody, maybe Pops and Jeff, because they said we absolutely cannot dance. I don't know really if anybody would have chosen that side of the detour. Like singing is not something people, unless you sing, usually do, especially when dance is the other option. It's usually easier. Right. And so, especially in a foreign language, blah, blah, whatever. So I get what you're saying, and that is really unfortunate. And their exit when they're like crying, and it was very sweet. But I don't know that they would have been like not last if it was a regular detour.
Yeah.
Or at least second to last if it was a 2-team elimination.
Fair.
But I'm like, if they would have picked Sing, because didn't the yellow team and the purple team, weren't they after them? So had they picked Sing, like the purple team was so far behind that it could change the outcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was like a possibly like poor strategic choice, being the last one on dance. Like
that's actually really true, because the purple team would still have had to do Sing probably.
Yeah.
And then
but again, it's like when you don't know where people are in the race, it's hard to make that choice. Us as a viewer, like I'm literally looking at it as purple team is so far behind. Go ahead and do Sing, knowing it's harder, but also knowing the safety of they are so far behind.
Yeah.
Wow. Good point.
Do we like this fork in the road?
I know.
Okay, it's perfect. No, it's perfection. Keep it. Just have it.
I mean, it did make for an interesting premiere, and I think that's again why this premiere felt so strong to me, because it just was an added element that made the placements kind of all over the place. So, that damn fork in the road.
Let's put a fork in it.
Before we wrap up the recap, I would love to just kind of know what everyone's feeling. Who's like your top standout team right now? Who do you feel like maybe was the MVP of the episode, even if they didn't place well? Like what's the standout team of the first episode for you?
Ooh.
For me, it's the green team, like the team that got first.
Jack and Carson.
Like they were, I don't want to say sleepers in my eyes, because I don't know any of them. I literally, like we talked about when we went over the teams, like we're just going off of photos and what Phil, happened to say about them. But one, love their energy. Like they were the ones that were like, oh my God, we're on the race. I love them. I love their personality. 2, they ran a flawless first leg, and like the nerves on your first leg are true. You know what I mean? So it's like, I felt like they were pretty even keeled.
Yeah.
I don't know. And they crushed the dance super quick. I don't know. And the fact that they're gamers, and then I don't know, to me, the green team, granted it's easy for the team that gets first to stand out, but I still think I would have said that about the green team, even if they didn't get first.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, they're the same.
I love the green team. I've met them a bunch of times now, and they're fantastic. But just for the purpose of not agreeing with you and giving a different answer, I actually think that Ernest and Bridget, and also Bernie and Kerrigan, are like, I think they may do really well. Like Ernest was saying, like, Bridget wasn't keeping up with him. So this wasn't like a, come on, Dad, keep up with me. This was a, where are you, girl? Like, let's go. And I just really enjoyed their interactions. Like, they're cheering each other on. I they might be one to watch. And then also Bernie and Kerrigan, I think, as long as they don't bicker, have the potential to go really far. They just seem strong and smart and with it. And so those are I know you said one, but I picked two because I don't listen. Like sleeper picks.
Yeah, I love that. Okay.
What about I'll give another diverse two, just so we don't all say the same people. First, like anyone, it's too early to tell. Let's be honest. Like we don't know. I will say Alyssa and Josiah were consistently strong because I mean, and they're first in sing. So okay, yeah. So the evidence shows they're good racers. They have a really good personality. Seems like really good relationship, and I have no reason to bet against them. A sleeper pick, I'll say, is I'm curious to see how Melinda and Erica do. So that's my sleeper pick, and maybe I'm saying that because one of them is from Colorado, and so like. You know, I got the Colorado bias. But also I think together, like they're kind of giving me similar vibes to like maybe like Danny and Angie from last season. A little bit. And you know, they were really good. And I think together they kind of have this like confidence yet humility that I think will like keep them in the race. You know what I mean? So even if they're not placing at the top, which maybe they will, but even if they're not placing at the top, I don't think they're gonna be at the bottom necessarily either. Like I think they can ride their way far in this game. So I'm just going to say I'll have my eyes on them as well.
I love all of these points. I'm going to go with someone none of you have said. I'm going to say Jonathan and Anna. And the only reason why I said that is because I loved seeing just how proactive they were in the downtimes that they had to really understand and do research. And even if it didn't ultimately pay off for them in the end, I just think that's smart racing. And if we continue to see that from them, I think it's going to serve them well. Even if, you know, Jonathan might be a little annoyed with how he places throughout the race, and sure, that might be frustrating to watch as a viewer and a former racer, but it's smart racing. And so I just want to give them props for just those moments in the premiere episode.
Yeah, and again, like emotions are. Sorry, you go, Brooke.
Is nobody saying Mark and Brett? Like I thought everyone was going to jump on them.
I've said them so much in any. They're my one and only. When I did Croquetta Chat, I sang their praises, and when we did the pre-cast assessment, like they're going to be a strong team. They remind me a lot of Will and I have no doubt they will go far.
They're amazing. They're just.
What I will say about Mark and Brett, because I agree, I have no reason to bet against them either. I will say this, like it just catered to their strengths so much, and so we haven't seen them challenge in ways that I think they're probably going to be strong in a ton of ways. I think they're going to be good at a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised. But we haven't. I don't know. Like these tasks are just very much up their alley. So let's see tasks that aren't a part of a circus performer's, you know, repertoire or whatever, and see what happens.
All in all, it's a solid cast, though, because I do feel like we got to know pretty much everyone for the most part in this first episode, and I'm excited to see how it ultimately pans out. I'm excited to see how they kind of adapt to these surprises that Phil's gonna throw their way. And I just think it'll make for, again, a season of surprises, but also an exciting one for us at home watching comfortably from our couch.
Boo. I'm just kidding.
But with that being said, that wraps up this recap. Floyd and Brooke, thank you so much for joining us. You obviously are welcome back anytime. It was such a great conversation, and I always love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And Cayla, I always love to see your face. We'll be back again next week. I'm working on getting some other special guests. If there are anyone from The Amazing Race that you would love to see join us on a future recap, let us know in the comments. I'm actually working on Monica and Cherie from season 4, an underrated all-female team that when I went back and did my rewatch, I was like, why were they never invited back? Because they are badass women, and I would love to have them on this recap because they still keep up with the show. But we'll be back next week for episode 2. And thanks for watching, everyone.
Till next time.
Bye.